Good day. So it's been too hot for me to read, which is a really weird excuse, but I'm sticking by it. And so I didn't really know what to do for a video. So I thought, why don't I tell a little story? It begins about 10 years ago when I was interning at various magazines, from Bizarre to a medical business insider magazine. And I was always on the lookout for paid written work. And one day I decided that journalism and what's it called? The editing one, I was finding it difficult. There weren't any around. So I thought, why don't I have a look at advertising places and places that might need copy writers, that sort of thing. So imagining myself as Peggy from Mad Men, I applied to a few advertising places, and one of them was in Essex. So I was excited because that's where I am, and it would be nice not to have to go all the way into London. It was something like ALR advertising or ASR advertising, or it was 3 letters of that kind. Advertising. So I was really excited when I got an email saying, we want you for the interview, please come in. I couldn't believe my luck, and I went along in Colchester, I believe it was, to my 2:15 interview, early and bright-eyed, and trying to think of all the writing type questions that I might be asked. And when I got into the waiting room, there was another girl there. And I said hi, she said hi, and I said, are you here for the interview? Because, I just fancied seeing what the competition was, and also just wanted to be nosy. And she said, yeah. And I said, oh, mine's at 2:15. And she said, so is mine. And I said, oh, we've got our interviews at the same time, that's weird. And then we were called in. So if you can imagine a satire of a corporate interview, it was worse than that. It was bizarre. It was this young guy, and he had so much gel in his hair that I expected him to float down a river. No offence to him, I'm sure he was very nice, but he was really young. And so I thought, well, this must be like an up and coming company, or I don't know. And me and the girl were both in the room together, feeling really awkward. I waited for the writing questions. I waited for the questions about my journalism course and things like that, and they never came. The questions were so obtuse that I barely even remember what they were. It was things like, if a company asked you to represent them in the best way possible, what would you do? And that's really like simplifying it and removing all of the jargon. And so I just whiffled through it. What else can you do? You just kind of make stuff up and hope that you don't sound like a serial killer. By the end of it, we're both trying to answer questions without feeling like an idiot in front of the other person. And eventually we get to the end, and he said, do you have any questions? And I said, yes. Could you explain exactly what the job entails? Because by then I had a weird feeling that this is not what I thought. He said, you'll be representing various companies and ensuring that you do all that you can to get their message across to the public. It was something like that anyway. And we just kind of went, oh, okay, yeah. And then the interview was over. It felt like a really long time. And I went home and I thought, I don't think I'm hearing from that place again. But I did. And I had to go in for like a test day or some such thing. And I had no idea what that was. But I went in, I was eager because I really wanted a paid writing job, and I sat down in the waiting room again, and the young guy walked past and said, they'll be here soon. And I said, the people I'm having another interview with, and he said, oh no, you're doing like a ride along. He didn't say a ride along, but that's what it was. And I said, right, okay. So he said, you know, is there anything that you want to know before they get here or something? And I said, yeah, can you please tell me exactly what it is I'll be doing? You'll just be making the public aware of particular companies and what they can bring and so on. And I said, so technically I could just stand out there, and I pointed to the window, and just tell people about it. He said, well, you could, but that's not, you know, that we don't just do that. And I thought, you don't just do that. What does this mean? What is happening here? And then eventually these two people came in, a woman and a man, again sort of fairly young, but they said, right, should we get going? And I said, right, okay, like what's going on? And they said, well, you're just going to come with us while we do a day's work. You'll be with us, you'll see how we do it, and then, you know, you'll pick it up from there. So I said, right, okay. So I got into the car, which was a nice car. I don't know anything about cars, but I know it was a nice car. And the guy drove off, and the girl was in the passenger seat in the front, and I was in the back. And I kind of felt like in mob movies where they're being taken off to be murdered in the bushes or on a lake or something. So I just sat in the back and didn't really say anything, and the girl in the front was going on about how she wanted that car, and she was pointing to all these different cars, and she was like, oh, I want to get this amount of money next month, I want to get this amount of money next month. Nothing wrong with that, I'm definitely not judging that, but again, it didn't sort of fit into what I thought, the job I thought I had gone for, and I was really confused. The girl turned to me eventually and said, we're going to stop at McDonald's, I think it was McDonald's, and then we're going to go off and do a day's work. So I said, fine. We went and we ate, and we were sat in McDonald's, and I was eating chips. They were kind of talking amongst themselves, and I was doing my usual socially awkward, trying to look as if I was joining in the conversation but not really thing. And then she said, right, we'll finish this and then we'll start going door to door. Is that all right with you? And I had a mouthful of chips and I swallowed, and I have an anxiety disorder and I'm very bad at sticking up for myself. So just to let you know. So I just kind of said, okay. And then we finished eating and we got back in the car. And the whole way I'm thinking, I can't do this. This isn't something I can do. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to say, actually, I lied before, this isn't okay, what am I going to do? We ended up going to a kind of suburby street in Dunmow, and Dunmow doesn't have a railway station. So I couldn't just like leap out and run. We parked up, and then the girl got out a tabard for the guy, a tabard for herself. And I don't know if you know, but a tabard is the thing that you kind of pull over, and it says like the name of the company that you're representing, and she gave one to me. And I thought, this is it. If I don't say this now, I'm going to end up doing a day of door-to-door sales. I don't have anything against people who do door-to-door sales, but this is just not what I was supposed to be doing. So I said, and I could feel the words like rising like McDonald's chips in my chest and going up my throat, and I had to really push the words out. And I said, I don't think I can do this. And the girl kind of looked at me and went, what? And I said, I'm really sorry, but I don't think that this is something I can do. And she kind of, I think she said something like, are you serious or something? And I said, yeah, I'm really sorry, I really am. And the pair of them looked at each other for a couple of minutes and had a conversation about what they were going to do. And I couldn't quite hear what they were both saying because the ringing in my ears was so intense of just the whole situation and what was going on. But I did hear her say, well, we can't just leave her here. And I remember thinking, no, you can't just leave me here. Eventually, she said, well, we'll drop you off somewhere that's got a train station. So I said, okay, fine. And very begrudgingly, they pulled back out of the street and drove in complete silence to a point where they could drop me off. And I got out of the car and I spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what had just happened. Okay, so I think the moral of the story is, if you are in an interview or something like that and all you can hear is corporate nonsense filling the air like clouds, just demand to know exactly what is going on. Just say, look, what am I doing? If you don't tell me, I will cry. Okay, so that's it. Cheers.